the headlines as well. That is Salasia. Salasia there was, we've seen this particular debate especially from the Western Kenya, right? So in his wardrobe he has the bozo's clown, right? It can be a clown sometimes as it is. So he wonders what to wear today.
There's a public rally where he fought with someone.
He boxed somebody?
Yes.
Yeah, so and we've heard also the governor of Kakamega saying he's a joker. Maybe that's why he has a bozo, the clown attire inside his wardrobe as well. These are some of the legislators that we do have. But amazingly, you look at some of the info-track performance of the legislators, he was one of the people who performed very well. I wonder what metrics they normally use. We could be saying he's a clown, but down on the ground he's received very well. This is Honorable Salasia, and this is, of course, the fuel story that we're talking about. You are now entering cheaper fuel zone, diametrically different what is happening in Tanzania and Uganda as far as the pump prices are concerned. And you can see Kenyans here on the roller there, they're really being squeezed every shilling out there, as you can see that particular, of course, the petrol dispensing machine that is squeezing a Kenyan there. All the shillings now are painfully coming out of him as it has been drawn. Then we have MCS, and also this made headlines as well last week, the impeachment of Kawira Mwangwaza. She survived it. Perhaps you could both go home. This is what the MCS, and we have this dentures there. They're toothless. They're toothless. Are they overrated? Yeah. These dentures were fake. Actually, they're just dentures, so they couldn't really bite hard. Right? So we discover there was nothing that really came out of it at the end of the day. And anyway, we shall be discussing this even at the tail end of the program. We've got a lot. But let's hear from Honorable Mungatana briefly. Or we wanted to comment on this because it was on the floor of the House briefly, just so that we don't dedicate a lot of time for it. You can just have a casual look.
Just to say that the evidence that was presented sincerely for the Honorable Kawira Mwangwaza was not, even the charges themselves were not worthy sending a governor away. That is something that we want Kenyans to know, that the Kenyans who vote, those people made a decision. And for you to overturn that decision, you really must come up with a very, very serious, very serious violations of the Constitution, which we are calling the gross violations of Constitution. In America, they say high crimes. You must come up with something, maybe killings, things that are so shocking. That's what the Supreme Court said. The Court of Appeal said they are so shocking that even when you hear that this is what is happening, then you are bound to remove that governor. But when you say people who went to China, 4 people went to China, and I don't know what, why can't you surcharge those people? When you say there were 100 people who are employed, according to you, irregularly, the other side are saying it was a pilot project. Why can't you get a court order to set aside? When you say that 78 million is unaccounted for because they are impressed and then you don't even present the Auditor General report, what are you telling? What are you telling us? So are those really gross? When you say one of the charges that the road has been named under the spouse, and then the evidence you produce is a WhatsApp picture. The other people are saying there's no. So can you honestly, even you as an MCA sitting there,
to such a circus there,
can you actually set aside the will of the people? The will of the people
is sacred.
Is sacred. Mm-hmm. It is a very high currency in politics. In fact, we say the will of the people is the will of God when it comes to the vote. When you have somebody elected by 100,000 votes and you got 20,000. Even when you go before the court saying, there are irregularities, the judge sitting there will ask himself, even if I turn this thing away, 80,000 difference, what are we saying? So I think we have to agree as a country that we must respect the vote. And then if there are issues, let them be dealt with at that level. And then Also, the evidence that was presented saying that we have abused, that the leaders were abused by the governor. And then when you look at it, it is because she's being called, she called them a cartel, and collectively, in law, there's no defamation when it's a collective group. There's no defamation. So she says the cartel of 10 people who are doing this and the other. And then juxtapose that with the kind of, male chauvinistic abuses that were there displayed on video to the disgust of the Senate. How do you then say that we were abused? And then when we look at you, you are saying such horrible things. There's no way that we could have sent the governor away on the basis of that. So our prayer, though, is that there are issues there. Governor needs to sit with the MCAs and the members of parliament. Please, let's make Meru work. And this governor has been voted, I think, among number 4 in the whole country. So there must be a way in which there's something good she's doing. And maybe those bad things she's doing, we pray that maybe religious leaders and so on can sit with the team, they just deliver. And then 5 years is not, we actually 4 years. If they don't want, they can change. But for now, give the people of Meru peace so that real development can come.
Thank you. Ukongo Mogini, just briefly on it.
Yes, Debal, if there is a day I've ever felt proud of being a senator, it was Wednesday night. Because sitting in that house, I just, put myself in the eyes of Kenyans. Having watched those proceedings live, having seen the videos that were presented before us, having listened to the closing remarks of lawyers for the two sides, what was the right thing to do? What decision could the Senate have made that could have, in the eyes of Kenyans, made them look like a house that goes for a just cause? And I agree with Mungatana here that having evaluated the evidence that was presented before us and having looked at the kind of horrible things that were said against Governor Kawira Mombasa, whom I've never met, really, you could not fail to make a conclusion that that was a political impeachment. There was a team that had come together to orchestrate the removal of Kawira Mombasa from office. And you remember now I was in this show, I told you when Mahazo was telling you there were so many calls that were coming in, I told you that as the Senate of the Republic of Kenya, we will retreat and we will do the right thing. And as Senator Mugatana said, even if you go to other jurisdictions, I remember there is a governor who was impeached in the US way back in 1917. The charges against him, you could see that he had really violated the values of the American society. He received a bribe of about $150,000 US, and there was evidence to that effect. It was a budget was passed by the county parliament, the state parliament, to fund the University of Texas, and he vetoed the budget, and the university was grounding to a halt. And when the Senate was the Senate for that state was looking at the charges, they said this guy is not fit to continue holding office. Senator, Gladys Sholei Mheshimiwa, you know what happened to Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon committed burglary. He actually sent people to break the Watergate offices and steal documents. That is a gross violation. You are actually a thief.
A common thief.
So on those grounds, you really have to impeach. But on this one of Kawira Mombasa, and also being a woman, when you see people are just ganging up to remove her from office, she had vied as an independent against very seasoned politicians and won. And now she's in office, and you want to remove her for grounds that were not really tangible, that were not convincing. We had no choice as the Senate of the Republic of Kenya than to return a verdict of return back to to surrender. And I must thank, really we must thank the leadership of the two big parties, the UDA and the Azimio coalition, because they gave us a free hand. Because at times, if I'm sure the president had interfered with the process, maybe the outcome would have been different. But he gave us a free hand and said, listen to the charges, retreat, and make a verdict that is fair and just. And I think that is, I wish every impeachment can be handled that way, so that as a Senate, we sit as a court that receives evidence, evaluates, and makes a verdict.
Thank you. Gladys, you watched it?
Yes, I did. Yes, it was very painful. But first, I must congratulate the senators here present, Senator Manzo, Senator Muganatana, and Senator Mugeni, and the entire Senate. They did us proud, because the Senate focused on the actual grounds that had been presented and the evidence supporting those grounds. And it was clear from the onset, and the Senate confirmed it, that those grounds were not grounds that were of sufficient threshold to occasion an impeachment of a governor. When you say that someone is demeaning or disrespectful of leaders, that at worst is bad manners, but it's not an impeachable offense. And I'm glad that Senate has set the bar, because my biggest fear was, had Senate upheld the impeachment, then they would have set a very low threshold for removal of governors, which means actually every sitting governor would go home if those are the grounds. And many of them want to be senators soon. So what will happen to them? But I think the part, again, I think Senate needs to look at its laws. That local government, I think that needs to come back to the National Assembly. Because in the National Assembly, for impeachment of President, Deputy President, and President, the Speaker, there was a ruling by Speaker Marenda and Speaker J.B. Muturi then, that the Speaker must satisfy themselves first that the grounds are solid and that the evidence supporting the grounds are sufficient. That means it establishes a prima facie case. Yes. That means a case on the face of it in order for it to move to the next stage of going to a committee or the plenary. Unfortunately, Senate, the law doesn't permit Senate to do that. The Speaker of Senate doesn't have that power. That power lies in the county assembly. So unfortunately, Senate had to deal with the circus. But had they had the same standard that the National Assembly has,
it would have
vetted that and would have not seen the light of day. But I think as a woman, I must say this. What was so painful is the evidence that was presented. It took me a while to believe that it was true. That what was committed by the local leaders and various persons against Senator Kawira is sexual assault. Let us call a spade a spade. It was sexual violence against her person. Never mind that it was verbal. Because sexual violence and rape doesn't have to be physical. It is when it is also spoken. The words that were used when I was given the translation is the worst that I've ever had. And I must thank Senator Omogeni, because you came out and said this is wrong. Because if it happened to my mother, he said, or my daughter, this is grossly wrong and completely unacceptable. And that is why today, it's no wonder that gender-based violence is prevalent. Because when you speak like that as a leader, basically you're saying it's okay to rape a woman. It's okay to violate a woman. That it is okay to commit sexual harassment. That is what it is. And it's about time that we must look into that. In fact, I believe that the job of Senate is not complete. Senate must interrogate those happenings. Because what's going to happen when we say that we can never meet the 2/3 gender threshold, which woman wants to be governor if that is what you can be taken to? It is frightening. Many women call me and said, you know, Gladys, you've been telling me I should run for political office. I cannot deal with it if this is what it is. So it's also good to do not only changing the law, it's good to make the environment conducive and friendly enough. Because people say, even if you can stand it, what about your children? What about your family? What about your parents? Because they have to deal with somebody insulting their daughter in that manner. And this is not just any ordinary woman in Kenya. This is a woman who broke all patriarchal barriers to be elected as a governor in Meru. It's no mean feat. So the fact that she can go through that is frightening. In fact, I had not watched those videos. In fact, I think when I saw one of them, it looked like it was TikTok, so I thought maybe it's not true. But when I actually got to see the full view of it, I was horrified. And I think as senators, you must revisit that issue. That is sexual harassment and violence at its worst possible form. I have never seen it, not even in the movies.
Right. Jan Maza, so you'll put tails on it as senators?
Yes,
briefly as we wind up on it.
I sat there and listened to the evidence, and most senators were open-minded, and just as has been said, we're very happy that State House did not interfere. You know, they said, listen to the case, give it merit. You know, this male chauvinism has to end. You could see it was going by regions or tribes, you know, the ganging. You see, say, we must support the men in Meru. You could see that attitude, and I think we need to wear it out as Kenyans. And what came to the House actually should have been all done at the county assembly level. You see, looking at the way forward is, you know, she's going to need to have a budget. She needs to run the county. Her ministers have never been approved, and there is a lot of politics, you know, behind the scenes. So I think Meru needs a special care. It needs special advisors, and the whole of this team, the MCS and the governor, must come together, sit down, and decide to serve the people of Meru. If you see, as a governor, how can you be arrested when in an official function? And then, after being taken around in circles and intimidated even by the police officer around there, then eventually you are declared a mistaken identity. You know, this you know, this governor was first elected woman member independently. Then now she's elected as there's something she was running every afternoon, you know, Okolea something, and then after Sunday she will go there with her church and they'll look for some poor family and they will help. Then comes this cow thing she was giving, and there is a meeting for tree planting, but it turns out to be an OV section, and it declares the deputy governor the new boss, and after that he's challenged, he's even told strategize and become the governor. Then these men go chanting.
In other countries, actually the governor should resign as a result of this. The deputy governor.
The deputy governor should resign.
In a normal world, they would resign. Because it becomes impossible once you've been actually, I think he was blessed by the Churicheke with a senior council present, no less. Yes, and a senior council is supposed to know to follow the law and not resort to some other methodologies. And I'm not saying I don't respect the will of the people of Meru, but the will of the people of Meru must be exercised within the constitution.
The law.
Yes, and if there is any mistakes that Kawira has done, then follow the right channels, like Senator Mungatana is saying. If it is wrong payment, there is a method of surcharging. Then usually those surcharges, those other issues will then come to Senate as evidence to say we surcharged her, but she never made good, or that she failed or disobeyed. If it is naming her husband by the road by naming whatever it is, calling the road by her husband's name.
It's a process.
It's a process, and it's actually the county assembly that approves, isn't it? So the county assembly had the power to reject it. So what I'm appealing here is let's follow the law.
Indeed.
Because it's about due process.
Thank you.
It's not due today. It's due process for Kawira, but next time it will be due process for you, Senator Omogeni, because I know you're going to be the next governor. I've heard that Senator Mugatana also plans to become governor. It's a good thing that you did that, because it would have been you the next time. Luckily, you can't be raped publicly. And also, I know that my student here is aspiring to be governor of Makueni. So, I think this is not for Kawira only. It is for posterity.
And what has Kobia done? Reverend Kobia comes from Meru.
Yes,
exactly. All these videos we have seen, what has he done?
No, that's what I'm saying. Reverend Kobia, I have said this in the past. He has failed. He failed even during the previous government. He was following small people for making small, irrelevant utterances during political whatever.
Thank you.
To serve politics at that time.
Right.
And today, something is happening in his own backyard.
county.
And Reverend Kobia, you have failed the women of Kenya.
That's a very important issue.
And we
she
shall
has
be
raised.
sending a petition for your removal
I
from
agree
that
with you
office.
fully.
Yes.
I'm with you.
All right.
Thank you, Senator Mogeni.
All right.
He's now become a women's activist. Yes. And I am going to give him an honorary doctorate for that.
Should be a women rep now.
To conclude,
All right.
to conclude, these
Yes.
men ran to one of those poor women given a cow. And they, dehead the cow. They cut it as a symbol of the worst things going to happen to the governor. So I thought it is those videos which changed the thinking of everybody. In fact, as the session started, Kawira was gone. You know, people were asking, why should she be brought here twice? Why should she not sort out issues on ground? We gave her an opportunity to go and sort out. So the decision at the beginning was 100% Kawira is gone. But as soon as these videos were played and the fights and the mistreatment of poor people and the nastiness, it came out as a different thing. So finally, I think we, as a country, we need to change some of the methods, and and Meru needs to work. So anciently elders of this country and experts, like people who have gone through that, like Professor Kibwana, who had an opportunity, and people have served as governors for 2 terms, probably should have a panel of some sort, sit down with Kawira and the MCS and make Meru work. I believe Meru will work.
Right, thank you.
It has a big future.
All right. Thank you. I think we've exhaustively handled it. But I wanted just to ask, even because the swing of the pendulum swings both ways, and people have been saying that Governor Kawira has been somewhat disrespectful to the eldership and the men of Meru, going by some of the pronouncements she has been making, when even though there was a presidential tour to Meru as well, standing before them and cocking a snook and rubbing it in front of them that now she is a woman that has been elected, deal with it. And this has not been going down well, especially with the men in Meru County, given their patriarchy, storied history that he is there, and still Njuru Cheke, that also, of course, also is like the main true north when it comes to decision making in the Meru community. There should be a way that maybe she should be counseled, or maybe talked to on how to deal with it, so that now she's not really also rubbing the men in that society the wrong way. Just briefly.
Yeah, you see, you can impeach a governor for contravening the constitution. That's the law. But you can't impeach a governor for having bad manners or for being slanderous, or
so
the
bad manners is exacerbating some of these allegations that actually
that's
come
why
in, because that's the underlying issue.
That's what I'm saying. We what does Paul Lumumba say? He said, Patrick Lumumba, he says, don't kill
mosquito with a
hammer. So if those challenges do exist, yeah, then there are other ways of dealing with it. Like he's saying, there are many governors that are retired who have performed well. There's many leaders in Meru County that can be able to go and make peace between Governor Kawira and the MCAs, because these are matters that can be dealt with in-house. It didn't have to play to that stage, and it didn't have to play to the stage that we now show our ugliest side.
Thank you. Right, let's leave it at that. All right, we had back just briefly as we're winding up. I'd raised a couple of issues, and I can see also we're really pinched for time, so we'll just get cursory remarks from them. First of all, address the question of the edible oils. And the president also is concerned that some of the corporations, especially when we're importing these edible oils, were not very transparent. There was, an inflated price that we had of $7 per liter of the many 125,000 metric tons that came, and they are substandard, and they're still now dead stock here. It cannot be disposed into the market, or it cannot be dispensed to the market right now, because also the local manufacturers have said they were not consulted in the first place. The issue of what is also on the front page of East African, spat over oil test, Museveni and Ruto ties, the latest row on petrol supply, that is likely to drive Ruto's men to a farther way. I know you don't have a copy of that, but you have it there on the screen. As Uganda finds new trading partners and Kenyan leaders look for new friends. Also, this has exacerbated to the issue of compounding the prices of fuel here in the country, because now Uganda, who also happen to be a big importer of goods, almost 90% of goods are now breaking away from us because of issue of transparency. If you could look at what also the Business Daily was holding, I think last week, Kari's hand in Uganda-Kenya transit fuel middlemen fight. Museveni turns heat on management fees by all marketers. Kari charges $10 per 1,000 liters of transit fuel. This is now what has really spooked this. Could we really clarify this? When we talk about fuel, I mean, there are so many confluence of factors that are affecting it, but it seems transparency also has not been really forthcoming on this.
It is true.
Is it
it's okay?
Yeah, it's true. You know, what happens is the oil marketers in Kenya, the ones who go and source the oil, which comes and then it's put on the Kenya KPC pipeline, the Kenya pipeline, then it's taken all the way to Uganda. So normally there are extra charges that are loaded on Uganda, Kampala and the rest of that area. And what Museveni has asked is that, why should we be paying so much? I will go myself to the market. So they twacked their law in Uganda to allow now for direct sourcing, so that they can avoid the middleman charges. And that is the issue, that they say we don't need to depend on Kenya, because it seems there are lots of charges in between. We can go straight and get it at a cheaper rate. So what they are doing really is an economic decision. You can't blame them. If they believe that they can get a better deal directly, then you cannot really stop them. It behoves us to look at our systems, to look at how the charges are being loaded, and why is it that our good neighbor is complaining. I think there are some things that need to be done, and I know that it is being addressed. I know for a fact, because after the State of the Nation, the president, you remember, flew directly to Saudi Arabia, if you remember. And, we import about 60% of our oil from Saudi. And one of the things that is on the table for discussions are some of those little costs that, okay, we are buying, but there's this management fees, I don't know, registration and what. These things are going to be, we hope that they're going to be looked at afresh, so that the landing costs for our business people will be less. And then eventually it will be passed over to the fuel, to the pump prices. And I wanted to say this, that it is true that Kenya is not an oil producing country, but I'm in the Energy Committee for Senate. And when we were in Turkana, we went to Lokcha, and we were able to see what is happening in the Tulo oil and that whole project. Truth of the matter is that they exported a pilot. They did a pilot extraction, and the quality of the oil that is being, the crude from Kenya, it's very high. You can't compare it to a number of these other places. As in, we will get more. It is the kind of crude that is really in demand at the marketplace. At the market.
So it's commercially viable.
It is. No, you see, you can. It could be little, and then it's not commercially viable. But the one that is actually there is commercially viable. That they confirmed to us. But the processes of getting things done in terms of getting all the way to production and marketing, it is a process. So they told us the likelihood it's towards the end of 2024. They hope to start now getting the whole thing done. Because we as senators also, the Energy Committee were asking, what's the delay? What is the problem? So they told us, oh, there's this and there's this and the other and the other. And the local people also were raising issues when we were there, that you see, even that small that you took out, you are supposed to give us something, and you never did. So you are exploiters, you are what? In fact, we don't want you. So there are a lot of issues around there that need to be managed. The Ministry of Energy was present, so they are hearing all those issues. All the energy players were there. So our prayer is that over time, those issues will be sorted out and Kenya can start producing oil. Having said that, I want to say, and I still repeat what I said, and Kenyans who are listening to me, it is not true that all countries subsidize fuel, because sometimes the country can simply not afford it. We were picking a tab, a bill of about 30 billion every month for the fuel subsidy that was put there by the previous administration.
There was a debt of 97 billion still being paid now.
Yes, by the time we went in, there was that debt of 97 billion. The country was simply not affording. I have just given you statistics that in October we were collecting something like 140 billion, which is an increase of about 19.4%, similar time last year. Now, look, if you are collecting about 140 billion, which is an increase, and then you are taking about 30 billion that you are supposed to be paying every month. You are not paying to all Kenyans, but you are subsidizing to a few big players in the oil. It's not sustainable. So let me finish by saying Nigeria, which is an oil-producing country, the first thing President Tinubu did when he entered, he removed the fuel subsidy. People rioted, people did what, even the matatus there, which are so famous in Lagos, they stopped working. They said, we will not do what, He told them, there are things I can do, there are things I can't do. And for me to start dealing with the economy problem here, allow me to do what I'm supposed to do. So as your president, this is an executive order. He didn't even do parliament. It's an executive order. We are removing the subsidy and let us face the reality. This is how it is.
Thank you.
So in Kenya, when the president came in and said, we will not subsidize consumption, he was telling us the reality of what is there. And then I wanted to also juxtapose.
We're supposed to be winding up.
I'm finishing. I'm finishing.
I want to give everyone a chance as well.
I'm finishing. I'm saying the difference between Herbert Hoover, the president of the US, and our president currently. Herbert Hoover stood up and said, I don't know what to do. Our president is saying, I'm removing this fuel subsidy, and the plan for the economic development is like this. And I keep saying, we have 1 year, we've done, we have 4 years. At that time, let us talk the politics. But for now, let us deal with the economic problem. We have a problem, and we are dealing with it, and we have a plan.
Right, thank you. But what you're not telling us is President Tinubu, after removing that fuel subsidy, also he had to call an emergency regarding the food shortage in the country. That was exacerbated. So there was a state of emergency in Nigeria.
For us, our food has come up.
Thank you.
Because we were subsidizing.
Let's hear from Congo Mugeni on this briefly.
Very briefly. Maybe I say three things. Number one, you mentioned the issue of edible oil and the corruption around it. I've read the article by the majority leader. And Dibal, I appeal to President William Ruto to fight corruption the Simeon Makonde way. That scandal has been with us for close to 3 weeks now. Nothing has happened. Before we get an answer to that, you have seen the other one is here on fuel. So he needs to quickly put his house in order. Everybody who has appeared before the National Dialogue Committee has raised the issue of corruption as the biggest contributor to the economic turmoil this country is facing. So let him move in and deal with corruption. And this corruption is within his cabinet. So it seemed to do house cleaning from within. Number two, you cannot ignore Uganda. Uganda is our biggest trading partner. Am I right?
You're right.
It's our biggest trading partner. So when they raise issues, and these issues are benefiting people you call cartels, you must do something as a country. Because if you lose your biggest trading partner, you're going to hurt your economy. So the relationship with Uganda, if you ask me, I'm not an economist, nurturing a relationship with Uganda is more important than protecting cartels. I don't know how high connected these cartels are, but you should get rid of the cartels and nurture the relationship with Uganda. Even the railway that we want to build all the way to Malaba is because we want to increase trade between Kenya and Uganda. So on this one, I'll side with Museveni and appeal to my president to deal with the cartels and restore our good relationship with Uganda. Then the final one is to still ask the government and my leaders who are in this room to listen to the cry of the people down there and respond to the suffering of Kenyans. That's what all governments do. It's not just about fuel subsidy. If you go to the US, when the economy is not doing well, the government actually gives money to Americans. You go to Australia, they do the same. When women give birth, they are given money. You know, you can't tell people, I'll be fixing this in the next 1 year. Kenyans are tired of that song.
Thank you.
They want solutions now.
Right, thank you. Gladys Bostrele.
I think Senator Mogeni has, Senator Mungatana, please, not Omogeni. Senator Mungatana has put it very well. And as judges say, I've listened to what my colleague has said, and I agree with him, and I have nothing useful to add.
Maybe you should also tell us, as we are winding up as well, now that the court has made a determination regarding the appearance of the CSs before the plenary, are you prepared as a speaker also to undertake that?
No, I think the CSs have been appearing before the National Assembly. I think there was a request now they can appear before the Senate.
Before the Senate.
And I think it's good. I think the more they can appear and be held to account is actually a good thing. Yes, right. So the questions that
so was it for
Senator
both houses?
Why
did they move to court? Because you said it was unconstitutional.
Well, you know, there's a way it's been done that, you know, without breaking the law directly, but, you know, in a way to be able to serve the people. You know, what used to happen was very unpractical, that you ask a chair of a committee to behave like a minister. Now, when the minister has to come and face the House, you know, it is really impounding, and it checks them in a very big way. And therefore, you see, the problem is the way we had made the law and made the constitution and the practice we had set from 2013. It is part of the challenges of implementation of the new constitution. And I believe the people also who had gone to court may want to go to a higher court so that they can get a final determination and idea on the whole matter.
Thank you.
So then on the issue of you know, our relationship with Uganda. Uganda has a lot of hope in Kenya as a trading partner. Remember, it's a landlocked country, and for Uganda to decide to use a very long route to transport their oil products and other products, and even to use a different port, it must be a very painful decision, because I know Uganda loves to be in a very good relationship with Kenya, and some of our infrastructure of investment over the many years are meant to enrich the trade between Uganda and Kenya. And if you go to Uganda, they have really improved in their economy and in their many things.
Thank you.
So the relationship between Kenya and Uganda is important. But the most important, you have avoided a very interesting headline of the People Daily, queries over cash, you know, for Ruto projects, and also why Malema touched a raw nerve during Nairobi visit. He was actually visiting Makueni, where he was launching the Pan-African movement.
We had a story, we should have actually done it, but we had rejoinder from Deputy President. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I thought, you know, Pan-Africanism is very important. That, you know, our own president had proposed that we have a common currency, the whole of Africa. You know what the euro did? And probably that's what will save, you know, our own currency sinking. You know, even some countries are using the dollar instead of their own local currency because it's
that is in the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which has been signed by 44 African countries, not Malema.
So, no, but Malema really.
So Malema has nothing to do with it.
All right. Yes. Gladys, you wanted to say something? I saw you All right. If you don't have anything more to say,
I was going to comment on that court case, but it's going to take a long time.
it's going to take a long.
Let's leave that for another day.
We can pick it for
because I
another
see it's
day.
9 o'clock. I need to leave.
Yeah, we need to leave as well. Thank you so much for your valued company. We next time will tell us also the issue of why you want to hive off functions of SRC to Parliamentary Service Commission when it comes to your parks. Right? Why would you want to do it your own self, to be setting up these things as it has been put? So we shall be interrogating that as well. But I want to thank you so much for the insight that we've had this morning here on Siasa Fiesta. You've been watching Siasa Fiesta here with Gladys Bose, who is the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, also Senator Danson Mungatana, Senator of Tana River, Senator Makueni, Senator Dan Mazo, and also Senator